Yes, Elon Musk's tweet from yesterday is still creating shockwaves throughout the stock market community and definitely electric car community. This is it. We're going to talk a little bit more about it because there's some new information came out, some new analysis came out. We're going to talk about pros and cons as it stands right now. Obviously, it benefited the stock a lot, and there's also comment of the day about me buying my leased car out and selling it yesterday to an 80-year-old man. I sold my Tesla to an 80-year-old man. That's okay. I have a second Tesla that I'm going to drive around in addition to my new commuter car, which is a Chevy Volt. We'll talk about it all coming up next.
Taking over the world, electrifying the world, electric.
Welcome to those of you who are watching me live on Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting me. We reached our first 100 Patreons today, so thank you so much. And of course, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing so you don't miss anything moving forward, especially if you want to stay up to date on everything that's going on in the world of electric cars. And what an exciting time to be in the universe of electric cars. This tweet from Elon Musk yesterday, that he wants to take Tesla private at $420 a share. He said that the funding was secured, and that's where everything began. The stock started going up. It had to be halted in the middle of the day. Then they proceeded with the regular trading. Today it's kind of plus minus, not that big of a change, at least while I'm at the time of me making this video. And it has been I have to say, I haven't heard, even from Tesla haters, I have to say, I haven't heard that many issues with it. Now let's talk about positives, and I think this is something that I kind of nailed yesterday. This is definitely going to be any public company has to serve their investors first and then customers, right? Any private company, and that's what Elon's trying to do, really can just serve the customers, right? And it's going to be the market, the customers, who will dictate whether or not they like what the company is doing. Obviously, now I know some people framing it that Elon Musk really wants to shut up all of the short sellers and everybody. I don't think that's his intention. I mean, it would be probably not good if it's his intention is to kind of go against somebody and just even the score with someone that he doesn't like. I really hope this is more about us, the customers, the people who love the brand and the cars. So I hope that's the right intention. So I wouldn't frame it in terms of, well, he's just trying to, deal with the haters. I think he's really just trying to cater to the lovers of the brand. So that's one thing. Now, I've just been thinking about so many different things that can free up the brand and himself from the pressure. Obviously, they won't have to consistently, be in production hell or sleeping in the factory. There are a lot of people who, even though they got this achievement, right? They finally got the production up to 5,000 Model 3s per week. A lot of people left from Tesla, and maybe more leaving because it's very intense. It's really hard. Not having that pressure will actually increase the quality of the product, and I think it won't be rushed as it has been many times, causing some issues with either body shop delays or software glitches, issues with autopilot and panels being misaligned and so forth. So I think overall, for consumers, I can't think of a better way to increase the quality and reduce the pressure from Wall Street. I don't do stock market. And by the way, just so you know, I'm not invested in Tesla shares. Let's just get it out of the way. I don't know why a lot of people are commenting that somehow I'm invested. Not at all. As a matter of fact, I don't do stock market at all because I don't believe the stock market actually helps the companies really as much as far as the product. Shouldn't say that. The stock market doesn't help the customers of the companies that go public and get listed on a New York Stock Exchange and so forth. The pressures and the rules and the way the stock market is, it makes no sense to me. It's kind of some different game that has nothing to do with actually product. So if Tesla can go private, I think any company can go private. I definitely applaud that, and I think it's a great idea. Now, however, there are some problems with not really taking the company private. It looks like the board is behind it, but the way he did it. And before I talk about that, just want to mention that this show and this channel is sponsored by Evanex, the aftermarket accessories for Tesla. There is a discount code in the description of this video, just in case if you guys want to save yourselves a few bucks. When you shop there. All right. So, yeah, and by the way, there was another news that came out that I think it's called Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia had invested up to 3 to 5% of stock in Tesla. It looks like that's true, but they didn't. They approached Tesla to sell their shares, and they refused, and they just went out. I think they got JP Morgan to get those shares from the market, from the stock market. So they acquired it fair and square without any kind of deals. I think it's pretty cool on one hand. I mean, well, no, I think it is cool because the country that's heavily invested in oil is investing now in an electric car, all electric car maker. I think the tide is shifting, right? This is a big deal. Now, of course, some people will question where the money is coming from. That country has different laws and culture and so forth, and some people might think that this is not the money that you won in this company. But listen, they bought it on the public market, and that's allowed. Tencent had acquired, I think, up to 5% this year, doing the same thing. So that aside, now let's talk about some cons, and the cons really come from the tweet, because there are rules. Tesla is still a public company, and there are rules how you can do it, and for example, how a CEO can make an announcement that can affect the stock price, right? So in this case, he basically is making a statement, for example, that the funding has been secured for taking the company private. Now, I myself asked him, not that he ever replied. Well, he replied to me once on Twitter, but really he doesn't. I've asked, and many people ask, hey, who are these investors that are ready to take the company private? There is no answer. Elon issued an email to his employees explaining, why. The board issued a statement that they're looking into this, but there is really no statement who are these companies. So now, if the funding if there is no evidence of the funding actually being secured, this could be, I believe this could be against the law, or at least have some penalties within the stock market. So I really don't. So this is probably something that's going to be investigated, and obviously this would be misleading, right? If I am an investor and I read this tweet and I said, oh, I should invest to Tesla, it's going to go to 420, right? And then I realized that, oh, he wasn't really telling the truth, then obviously I would be put at risk of losing my money over something that he knew wasn't the right information. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying this is one of the potential issues that probably going to be investigated. Now, the other one is, of course, the fact that I believe by the rules and regulations, whenever a company communicates something important like this, something that can really move the stock, it has to be done sort of with an equal opportunity. So everybody gets to know at the same time. For example, a press release that the company releases considered to be sort of equal opportunity communication. Being announcing on Twitter, people can argue that, well, if I'm not on Twitter, I'm at disadvantage. And Tesla has never really made it clear that this is one of their main ways to communicate. They did include it once, I believe, in their not earnings report, maybe shareholder meeting statement, that for more information you should follow Elon on Twitter, but it was never clearly stated that, hey, listen, if you really want to follow our company and get all of the information, then you really need to be following Elon Musk on Twitter. So that could be another problem, that this was announced on Twitter rather than into more accepted and equal opportunity ways to communicate this. So this is another thing that he might have a problem with. And of course, generally a vague statement like I am considering taking Tesla private is certainly a statement that can be misinterpreted, right? And it's not like he's announcing a new door handle feature or a new user interface feature. I mean, this is a big deal. This is a huge deal. So saying I'm considering, this definitely could have been worded better. So the criticism of this move, which I think and most people believe that is brilliant, if anything, and definitely great for consumers. Most of it comes from the way it was done, and this, I will say it again over and over. I think he needs to get off of Twitter, or I mean, this really is just not the way a CEO of a public company should communicate. Now, once they go private, he can do whatever he wants. I still think this is not the right way to do it because, again, of the vague statements, and just you can't type that much. This is a complicated issue. You can do it with 240 characters or whatever the limit is now. So I would still, hope he changes the ways he communicates, but. Again, this has been a great news. By the way, some news of my own. See how sad I am? This is my last day with Mocha. That was the name of my Tesla that I drove most of the time. I have a second one that's I'm gonna get back next week, and that will be my main car. The other one is white, and it's a regular 60, and that lease probably won't be over until May. This one is over. I actually sold it a month early before the lease ends, and I'll explain it a little bit in a second why. And I sold it to an 80-year-old man. This guy, he's 80 years old, and he's getting this car. I bet this is going to be the best car he's ever driven. So I'm definitely excited for him. And he wanted to keep the name, so he keeps the car will keep the name Mocha. So now this week I'm reviewing the Kia Niro plug-in hybrid. So I'm driving that car. As a matter of fact, I'm just about to drive it right now after I do the show. Let's move on to the comment of the day. Before that, of course, I want to give a shout out to a few new Patreons as we crossed 100 Patreon mark. If you want to become a supporter of the show, please go to patreon.com/E4Electric. The link is in the description of this video. Thomas Zito became a Patreon. Thank you so much, Thomas. I really appreciate your support. Patrick Corman also became a Patreon. And Igor Arlovich actually doubled his pledge. Hey, every dollar counts, and every dollar I really appreciate. There are a few more. I will give them shout outs, of course, tomorrow. But let's move on to the comment of the day, and this is about my the lease that I ended early to sell the car. Now this comment, let me bring it up. This comment comes from John Wilson. He says, "How do you sell a leased car? You don't actually own it. You just do not renew the lease." Yes. So I have plenty of videos out there where I explain why leasing a car in 90% of the time is is the best deal for a customer. You do have to have a really good credit to do it, but if you do, that usually is the best deal, and that's why I lease my cars. There are videos on my channel you can find, separately from that. But here's what happens. Because the residual value is set in the beginning of the lease, right? So let's say, I don't remember what I bought this car for. Let's say $80,000, right? And the residual value was set for $50,000. So the lease is essentially paying down the difference. Well, when the time comes, if the car is worth less, let's say this car was worth only $45,000, well, I would still give it to the bank, and the bank would lose $5,000, believe it or not. It's one of the few times you can actually screw the bank, and bank will take your loss. Because if you bought this car and wanted to sell it, you would have to sell it at the market price. So 45 would be what you would get for it. But I already got 50 for it from the bank. In this case, my car is actually worth a little bit more, and then this does happen quite often, and I've done this before. So what you do is you buy the car from the leasing bank. You said, here, I'll give you 50,000, plus, minus the payment that I did make because there was 1 month still left, and you give me the title, and then you take the title and you give it to the new buyer who wants to buy it for more because the market price is more. In my case, for example, the money that I got for the car was pretty much exactly the same what it was what was the residual value, but I put extra 8,000 miles on the car because I drove it more than I thought. So I would have owed 25 cents per each mile, which would come up to about $2,000 extra dollars. But in this case, because I sold it to a private party and I gave the money to the bank already, I didn't have to pay that overage in mileage to the bank. So essentially, the guy got a good deal on the car, and I get not to pay the $2,000 when I return the car. And the way it worked, really, logistically, the paperwork is sent from U.S. Bank. You sign an affidavit and you have it notarized, at least the way it works here in California, that you're actually selling this car to someone else immediately, so you don't pay the sales tax. The bank issues you the title once you pay it off, and in this case, the buyer actually wrote the check directly to my bank. I get the title and I sign it off to the buyer, and we have to get this done within 10 days, so we don't pay the double tax, and that way the new guy owns the car without me ever officially owning the car, really, for more than like 10 days. So that's how it's done. I recommend everybody lease, or at least I recommend that everybody at least watches the video of why they need to lease the car. So all right, guys, now for those of you who are watching me live on Patreon, I'm going to go ahead and now switch to the extra mile. That basically is a segment where I just talk to you guys about a few other things. Some are personal, some are just kind of extras at the end of the show. So if you want to join us there, of course, patreon.com/E4Electric is where you can support the show, watch me live, and also enjoy the extra mile segment. All right. Other than that, I gotta go to the Bay Area, visit it after moving to Sacramento. So I see you tomorrow, and remember to stay charged.